Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. So let's continue with the last part of this topic, which is on nested loop. In any of the loop, it can contain another loop, meaning that we are doing nested loops. For each iteration of the outer loop, the inner loop executes completely. What it meant by that, when we have two while loops, it will execute the inner while loop first before continuing with the outer loop, then doing the inner loop again. Let's look at this code to make sense of it. What do you think the output from this code? We have int count1 and count2. We initialize count1 as 1. We say that while count1 less than or equal to 10, it will execute all the statements here. As count1 is currently 1, it goes to the next line, which is count2 equal to 1. Here we have the inner while loop. While count2 is less than or equal to 5, which is 1 less than equal to 5 as true, it will execute all the statements within the inner while loop. It will display here again and increment count2 by 1, so count2 becomes 3. It checks the inner while loop condition, 3 is less than or equal to 5, so it displays here again and increment count2 by 1, so count2 becomes 4. We are still within the inner while loop. It checks, is 4 less than or equal to 5? As it is true, it displays here again and increment count2. Count2 becomes 5. Same as before, it checks, is 5 less than or equal to 5? And executes here again, then count2 becomes 6. Within the inner while loop, when it checks the condition, is 6 less than or equal to 5, it becomes false. So it exits the inner while loop and returns to the outer while loop. The last statement within the outer while loop is count1 plus plus. So it increments count1 to becomes 2. It checks the outer while loop condition. 2 is less than or equal to 10. So that is true. It reassigns the value of 1 to the variable count2 again. It then repeats looping through the inner while loop until count2 becomes 6 and exits the inner while loop. So these steps are similar as before. So your count2 will start from 2 and then increment it becomes 3, 4, 5, and 6. After count2 becomes 6, it exits the inner while loop and goes back to the outer while loop. So the last statement within the outer while loop is count1 plus plus. So the value of count1 is increased and becomes 3. It checks again the outer while loop condition. 3 is less than or equal to 10. So it reassigns the value of 1 to the variable count2 again. It repeats the inner while loop until count2 becomes 6 and exits the inner while loop. The same steps are repeated until the outer while loop becomes false. Here is showing another example where you can have nested for loops. Within this for loop, you have another for loop. You can try and run this code to see what is the output of it. Similar to the nested while loop, in this for loop, in the first round, it will execute the outer for loop, then completely execute the inner for loop. So, in the first round, it will have column equal to 0, and within the inner for loop, it goes from row 0 until row 3. Then, increment the value of column, which is the outer for loop. It goes again to the inner for loop and do for column 1, row 0 until row 3. It repeats the same steps until the outer for loop becomes false, which is when columns has the value of 4. The break and continue statements alter the flow of control in a program. We can use the break statement in while, for, and do while loops to immediately exit from the structures. The continue statement is used to skip the remaining statements in the loop and proceeds with the next iteration of the loop. We have seen the examples of using break and continue when we learned if and if-else statements. It works the same in any of the loops. Let's look at this example. Here we have two code where the first one we use break and the second one we use continue. In the first one, it will loop through the for loop and displays the value of I. Then I is incremented by 1. When I becomes 4, the condition within the if statement becomes true, so it breaks out of the for loop. That's why the output is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Because once I becomes 4, it exits the for loop. In the second code, however, when I is equal to 4, it finds continue. So it skips only that round and continue with the next increment. This means it only skips 4, but then continue with other values until the for condition becomes false, which is I less than 10. So the output is 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's the end of topic 5. To summarize, we have learned about while loop, do while loop, for loop, and also the use of control loop, which are by control, sentinel value, and also using flag. We have also looked at nested loops and the use of break and continue within our loops.